Today I want to talk to you about the buyers and sellers frozen markets, the staring contest. The 2021 versus 2028 pricing reminds me of the quote by Seth Godin. People don't believe what you tell them. They rarely believe what you show them. They often believe what their friends tell them. They always believe what they tell themselves. I want to go a little bit more in depth with this. A lot of sellers are really hoping, kicking themselves, wishing they still got the price from 2021. And the investor buyers are really trying to take out the risk, and they're really saying, well, I want to buy based on probably where the market's going to be in 2028. So there's a gap of about 7 years. And that's where we're running into challenges with the staring contest and the frozen markets, because one person's going to be accountable for holding it a while, and one person gets to wash their hands of it, right? And then get out of it, right? But just because a seller didn't sell in 2021, I think it's because doesn't mean they can get that price now, right? And I think what it is for a lot of people is they just need to really see everything around in the economy crashing in front of them. They need to see all the defaults of the credit cards, all their repo markets with the cars. They need to see the BlackRock stuff and the loans going bad and all the write-offs and what's happening in the auto sector. And they need to see some bank closures. And then they start to believe it a little bit. And they say, well, maybe we shouldn't hold on long term. Maybe we should get out of the properties. So I think that's kind of what we see. And as the investor buyers know that the market's going to get a lot tougher, and they're preparing for a downward trend, and as we saw last time, a lot of times from 2007 to 2017, we saw that 10 years for that rebound. And you tie up cash or you tie up a down payment, that's a long time. It's an opportunity cost of how much time your money is tied up, right? You're not getting a return on that. If the market's going down and then it's taking a while to come back up, you're for sure not getting a return on it with appreciation. Maybe you are with cash on cash return, cash flow, which really leads us into how can the sellers sweeten the pot to make it more obvious for the buyers to want to buy, the investors to want to buy. Can you provide more cash flow? Maybe there's only so much cash flow. Maybe it's already rented out. Some of these investors like the properties vacant. A lot of them don't, but they like to see it performing as rented. Can you provide a lot of cash flow? If you can't provide a lot of cash flow, can you allow for the banks? You're either going to do cash, which ties up a lot of cash, which you can just put in treasury bonds, or it's going to be all cash, which maybe it's not worth tying up your money for an opportunity cost. And then there's also the 20% down with the banks. And of course, there's certain ways to do less than that. But a lot of people think they need 20% down, and then they don't want to tap that kind of money, like I said, for 10 years. So that doesn't make a lot of sense for investors. So then you get into like 10, 15% down. Now we're talking a little bit better. And then it's like, well, how are you going to do that? Well, no banks. Well, how are you going to do that? Seller financing, contract for deed. Yeah, but a lot of sellers have been trying that, and it's not moving the needle. That's not getting properties moved. So then they'll come down to 5%, and then a few of us will actually have a conversation with them when you get to that point. And you'll still want 3% or 2% down, or at some point, maybe 6 months or a year from now, when there might be so many of them that we might zero down. And we may even say, hey, do you have a free and clear property? You have a 0% interest rate that you can provide. Some of these sellers can provide a hybrid. They have low locked-in mortgage payments, and they can even provide for their equity some seller financing on a note at really low interest rates. So all of that kind of sweetens the pot. And then obviously contract for deeds is a little bit more interesting, right? It's a little bit more magnetic. But then we get to a point where, we see enough of those that now the more advanced investor groups out there, maybe even from other states, they want subject to. They want to be able to put it in trust. They want to be able to do some really creative stuff, and that's understandable. Those are the ones that are hungry to buy in this market. when there's a possible liquidity crisis coming from tighter lending and whatever's happening with the AI bubble. But, as a seller, you need to maybe start to connect the dots and realize where the economy's heading. You don't want to be too late. You're chasing down the market. You're catching a falling knife. And until I can get you there for you to sell yourself, believe it yourself, like the quote from earlier, Seth Godin, you're going to end up waiting too long after the market's dropped a bunch. So both sides of this, from the seller to the buyer, it reminds me a lot of the haves and wants section, the two-sided marketplace at MNREIA on the first Tuesday of every month. There's sellers and there's buyers. There's investor buyers and there's sellers and there's wholesale sellers. And what I think they need to do is extrapolate more, if that's the best word for it, is don't just say I've got a house in Champlin that's 3-bedroom that needs carpet. Call me at this number. That doesn't really position yourself or give a clear picture to remove a lot of the risk of calling you. Get the information for the investor. Understand the avatar and the investor that you're selling to. Actually tell them the after repair value. Tell them about the estimated repairs. Just say, hey, maybe I'm not an expert at estimated repairs. This is kind of the scope of what it needs. And I don't know if this is the dollar amount, but this is kind of the scope of what it means. And some of the best ones will know. The ones that want to buy with cash, the ones that want to flip houses. Those are not the seller financing ones. So go with that, and then you got to get really good at negotiating the price, and then your assignment fee is going to be into the price, and then you're going to close those deals, right? But then there's the seller financing ones that you can talk about as well. And again, you got to sweeten the pot, even as a wholesaler, especially with your fee in there, because that's upfront money. You got to really make it sound like a good deal in a market that's declining, because the advanced investors that are going to be buying this stuff, they're going to want to make sure that the price is really good on the fix-up ones or on the seller terms ones, that they're really good. So it's important to not just say some quick notes of a sentence here or a sentence there with your phone number. You're going to get a lot more calls if you make the deal a lot more magnetic and make it very, very obvious that there's money being waved in front of their face. There's opportunity being thrown in front of them. And then the people will text you and they'll call you. And they'll want to go see the property if they like what they hear. So again, that reminds me of the haves and wants. It's over in MNREIA, first Tuesday every month. It's a marketplace, especially with mortgage people and realtors who aren't doing a lot of transactions. They're going to want to be able to make money some other way if they're not getting a lot in commissions right now, if their leads are down, if their income is down from that. This is a marketplace for them to move haves and wants. Look for the distressed sellers, look for the motivated sellers, and tell them what it takes to move the properties. Educate them.